Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our Phases of History presentation. Tonight, you will meet rulers from ancient Macedonia, scientists, authors, playwrights, and men and women who changed the world in many different ways.
For the last 8 weeks, the grade 4s to 8 classes have been working on how to research, how to choose what's important and interesting, and put it all into one big formal essay. Tonight we will present these stories.
And a special thank you to Mrs. Faber for putting this all together. We've had so much fun in class the past weeks, like practicing with marshmallows in our mouths. A round of applause, please, to Mrs. Faber.
And tonight is really a celebration of these students. It is no small feat to research a topic, summarize that research, write a full essay, prepare a presentation, and so much more. The assignments that I've given these students have not been easy, but I have been astounded week after week how they have risen to the challenge. So tonight is a celebration of their work, and I can't wait for you to share in that. But before we begin, I would like to invite Mrs. Block, maybe she is still in the kitchen, oh no, to open us in prayer.
Let's pray. Lord, we come before you at the beginning of this evening, and we thank you so much that you could be here with us today, and we ask that you bless these performances and all the hard work that the students and teachers have put into preparing these speeches and performances, and we ask that you give us a good evening and a good last week of school. Be with our family and friends, both far and near, and keep us safe and in your care. And we especially think of the Matheson family who celebrated a funeral yesterday, and we pray for them and watch over them, Lord. And give us a good evening yet, and help us do everything to your honor and glory. All this we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Before I welcome up our first presentation, I would also like to thank Mrs. Block, Mrs. Van Delft, and all of the parents who have helped and been the wind in the sails to finish these assignments. Has been a challenge, and with you behind them, it is what has allowed them to excel academically, and I have seen so much character growth in certain as well. It truly has been a privilege. So we'll begin this evening with Adam de Borsap.
My essay will be about William Shakespeare. I, William Shakespeare, lived a very interesting life as a brilliant writer. How did I come up with thousands of words for the English language? It is truly one of our biggest mysteries. I wrote and acted in many plays. On April 23rd, 1564, I was born. When I was 18, I got married. Gilbert, my younger brother, loved Shakespeare because I used to play with him in my younger years a lot. When I was young, my favorite classes were drama and writing. Shakespeare, had the biggest vocabulary of anyone, 25,000 words for a brilliant writer. The play I disliked the most was Macbeth, because my son Judy died the day after the play. Not a lot is known about my early years, but we know that Shakespeare has wrote a lot of the English language and is known to many people. The English language has been made by Shakespeare. Most of the time, my hand was tired.
Thank you, Adam. Our next presentation is Elliott Brennan.
is a story about a wise, brave woman who just so happens to be me. My name was Elizabeth Blackwell. I had a very interesting life because I became the first woman doctor. I was an amazingly brave woman. I was born in Bristol, England in 1821. I had a small family with 3 kind siblings. I loved my family very much. The only trouble was, my mother wanted a big family, but since there were not many doctors around, most of my siblings died. This is the reason I wanted to become a doctor. I looked everywhere for a doctor school, but this was difficult because girls were not allowed to become doctors. Finally, in 1847, I found an amazing doctor school to go to. My school is called Geneva Medical College, but since I was the only girl there, most of the boys picked on me. Excitingly, on January 23, 1849, I finished doctor school and became the first woman doctor. In 1868, I opened a college for women and children. I loved being a doctor and helping people in need. Sadly, in 1910, I passed away. I was an amazing doctor and helped many people. I found it important that they should allow woman doctor as well as man doctor. In 1849, everyone was awestruck when I became a doctor. This was a time when my whole country bloomed. I saved many lives, although I was a woman. Like I once said, it does not matter the gender, anyone can be a doctor.
Thank you, Elliott. Our next presenter is Rihanna Versluis.
Have you ever been a pilot? Well, I'm the world's first woman pilot. Tragically, the last time I was flying, it did not go well. What happened is I was coming home from one of my adventures and I ran out of gas. This caused me to land in the middle of the ocean. I had 2 sisters and we always kindly played together. I was married, I had no children, although I really wanted them. My full name is Amelia Mary Earhart. My husband's name is George Putman. My parents' name is Samuel and Amelia. My lovely family is not big, but it is small. I was born in Atchison, Kansas in a tiny house. I was born on July 24, 1897. Me and my sisters collected insects in our barn. One time I was flying, I crashed. Sadly, I died on July 2, 1937. My last adventure did not go. What was happening, I was flying across the Atlantic Ocean, and then I crashed. And I was flying solo. I died on July 2, 1937.
Thank you, Rihanna. Next, we have Alexis Hoekstra.
I am Mon Montgomery. I was born November 30th, 1874. I lived with my mean grandparents, so they were always so mad and sad. And when you saw them, they were always on the couch. They never played with me, but when I got older, Anna Shirley helped me become famous. Canadians were proud of me. My dad's job is a sea captain, and my mom's name is Claire Montgomery. I married Ewan MacDonald. Ewan MacDonald passed away April 1, 2076. Chester died 1963, and Stuart died September 9, 1882. Hugh died August 13, 1914. Those were my kids. I write fiction books like Anne of Green Gables. I write books because I would only be able to see my father one more time. At least I had grandparents. I loved her in my diary. My life was mostly writing in my books.
Thank you, Alexis. And next we have Michaela Musker.
Have you ever been blind and deaf? I am Helen Keller, and I was born on June 27, 1880. I started life in Tuscumbia, Alabama. I was a normal, healthy baby. There was nothing wrong with me at the start, but at the age of 2, everything changed. I was the first child my parents ever had. My life was full of love and care. I became a very important person to my small family. I ended my life on June 1st, 1968. Although my life started at a happy pace, it soon changed. I became very ill at the age of 2. I had a high fever. The fever disappeared, but I was left without sight or hearing. A teacher named Anne Sullivan came to live with me and my family. Anne cried sometimes because of my demanding fits. After a few years, I learned how to read, write, and speak. My life was finally getting better. When I was older, I decided to help the world. I politely asked the President of the United States if I could help more blind and deaf people. I learned how to overcome lots of problems, and not just my own either. I ventured around the world, helping and inspiring people. I taught many blind and deaf people and met lots of famous people. I definitely helped the world with the many things I did. My life started out as anybody else's until that fatal day. When I became blind and deaf, my parents were worried about me. When my amazing teacher came, my life changed completely. The only thing worse than being blind and deaf is having sight but no vision.
Thank you, Michaela. Our next presenter is Jonathan Faber.
Hi, my name is Meriwether Lewis, and I explored new areas in North America after the Louisiana Purchase and met hundreds, or maybe thousands, of people. My partner, William Clark, and I had prepared for the danger, but we weren't prepared for the beauty. Thomas Jefferson was President of the United States when the Louisiana Territory was purchased from France in 1803. This purchase doubled the size of the United States. Jefferson wanted to explore this new territory, and he also wanted to see if there was a northwest passage from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean that would lead to the Indies. To lead the expedition, Jefferson hired his secretary, that's me, because I was a former Army officer. And I asked my former Army commander, William Clark, to be my partner. We spent time gathering supplies and hiring people to join our group called the Corps of Discovery. And on May 14th, 1804, myself, Clark, and about 40 other men set off in 3 boats from near St. Louis, Missouri, where the Missouri River flows into the Mississippi River. We traveled northwest up the Missouri River. Clark and I drew maps and kept dated journals of the areas we traveled. When we reached South Dakota in September, we fought with the Teton Sioux Indians. In October, we were in North Dakota and spent the winter with a tribe of friendly natives called the Mandans. We met a French-Canadian fur trader named Charbonneau. He had a young native wife named Sacagawea, who was a Shoshone Indian. Clark and I hired Charbonneau and Sacagawea as guides and interpreters. In hindsight, we would not have succeeded or survived without Sacagawea's knowledge and leadership. In April 1805, the group headed west toward Montana. When we came to rapidly flowing water, we have to carry the boat on land for miles. In August, Sacagawea recognized familiar land. The expedition finally met up with a tribe of Shoshone, and the leader turned out to be Sacagawea's brother. The Shoshones provided the Corps of Discovery with horses and a Shoshone guide. We finally realized the Pacific Ocean we reached the Pacific Ocean in November of 1805 in Oregon near the mouth of Columbia River, and we spent the winter there. We returned to St. Louis on September 3rd, 1806. More than 2 years after we left, we had traveled a total of 9,000 miles in that time. Clark and I provided accurate maps and journals of the areas we visited, including sketches and details about 200 plants none of us had ever seen before. Because of our exploration, many settlers followed our path, now called the Lewis and Clark Trail, to the west. We had found a rich new land for our country.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our next presenter is Burke Van Vliet.
I am King Tutankhamun. I was a very royal boy. I lived in Egypt, and I was born 1334 BC and died 1323 BC. At 10 years, I changed my name to Tut. When I died, I did not leave a son behind to become the next pharaoh. I was a very, very popular king, and one of my famous quotes were, "For thousands of years I have seen it all, and I've learned that the sun always shines after the storm." I actually became king at age 9. I love drawing art of my tradition on walls. I also love to hunt big ostriches. At 10 or 11, I changed my country's religion. My favorite possession was my dad's iron dagger. It's insane that such a young boy like me became king in Egypt. I had a slow, difficult, painful death. I died at 18 from infection. When I died, they put me in a second-hand coffin, and the Egyptians rode me down the Nile. I was a very responsible and brave king. I made my own dinners and lunches, and at 13, I made my servants do this work. Sadly, I died at such a young age.
Thank you, Burke. Next, we have Cohen van der Linde.
I, Albert Einstein, was one of the world's greatest geniuses. I was born in Germany, 1879. Some believe that I may have a form of autism, and I was considered an absolute genius. When I was 4 years old, my dad gave me a compass, and this caused me to be very interested in science. In the world of science, I loved music, and I played the violin and the piano. In high school, I received very high marks in math. Later in life, I became a physicist. Not only this, but I wrote theories and did research. I wrote a theory as I discovered that nothing travels as fast as the speed of light. It was incredible that I became a celebrity and gave lectures about many of my discoveries. During the Second World War, I wrote to the President of the United States and encouraged me to create a nuclear bomb. The reason for this is because I was very conquered that the Germans may attack the United States with a nuclear bomb. After his death in 1945, the Americans decided to make a nuclear bomb. Sadly, I died in 1955 from an abdominal aneurysm. It was strange to find out that an autopsy was performed on my brain to try and discover what made me so intelligent. They did find an extra fold towards the front of my brain. Perhaps this may be a clue. Once I said, the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. It has been my imagination that made me a genius. One will never know.
Thank you, Cohen. Next, we have Elijah Roberts.
I'm afraid that many among you are concerned about making a living than making a life. I am Martin Luther King Jr. I was born in Atlanta, United States. Black people were treated poorly there. As I became older, I became a preacher. I gave speeches like I have a dream, and I have been on the mountaintop. I also won the Nobel Peace Prize. I got married to Coretta Scott. I got arrested 29 times, and I helped organize a peaceful protest. One evening on April, I was standing on a balcony of a motel in Memphis, and I was fatally shot. The person who shot me was James Earl Ray. I was only 39 years old.
Thank you, Elijah. Next, we have Ella Bursma.
What would you do if you were a Jew and you were in World War II? Well, my name is Anne Frank and I was in World War II. I was born June 12, 1929. I lived in Germany, but when I was 4 years old, I moved to Amsterdam. My father was very proud of being German. Me and my family had a nice home and good money. I loved to read stories to my friends, but I was a little naughty and played pranks with my friends too. Life was great until World War II came. Hitler was evil, and he wanted all the Jews killed. My family were Jewish. We were not allowed to go to church or school. In 1939, World War II began. Life started to get hard for my family. We hid in an attic by my father's company. We got food from our non-Jewish friends, but sadly we were captured and sent to concentration camps. Only my father, Otto Frank, survived. Life sadly got really hard with World War II. My father, Otto Frank, married Edith Frank. They had 2 kids, me, Anne Frank, and my sister, Margaret Frank. On my 13th birthday, I got a red diary. I recorded my life, dreams, hopes, and fears in it. I died from getting sick with scurvy. My father, Otto Frank, found my diary and brought it to a publisher. It became very popular and is in 65 languages. My diary is being read by thousands of people today. My father, Otto, and Edith's kids are beautiful and amazing. Always have hope like I did.
Thank you, Ella. Next, we have Aubry Peters.
I, Jane Austen, lived in a time when women were dependent on men and were expected to get married. I had a lot of men in my life, and my family was uniquely supportive of my writing. Women did not write books. Because I had a passion for writing and saw the world differently, I encouraged many female writers. I was born in 1775, Steventon, England. I had a sister, a mother, a father, and 6 brothers. My father owned a boarding school, and this was for boys. I had a big house, and it was always noisy. I wrote plays that my family loved. They didn't know which one they loved better. I wrote 6 books, and 4 of my books were published. All of my books said written by a lady. Slowly but surely, my secret leaked out. I died on July 18, 1817. People still read my books today. People read my books in the year 2022. I made an impact on the world by making people realize that anyone can write books. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I was a very important person.
Thank you, Aubry. And next we have Isabella Vanderde.
My dream was to live among chimpanzees, and later I did so. My name is Jane Goodall. I was a very curious little girl. I loved Africa and wanted to go there one day. Around 20, I was able to go. I had a very interesting life and loved animals, but was greatly interested in chimpanzees. I was born London, April 3rd, 1934. When I was young, my dad gave me a stuffed chimpanzee named Jubilee. I always dreamed of going to Africa. On my 4th birthday, my sister Judy was born. At the age of 5, I was very curious in animals, particularly chimpanzees. When me and my sister were young, World War II began in London, 1938. The world wars were hard for some, but my family made it through safely. In my late teens, early 20s, I was saving up to go to Africa. Africa was expensive, so I worked as a secretary and later a waitress. When I arrived, I instantly fell in love with Africa. Later, I made up my mind and decided to stay. I met a guy, Louis Leakey, who offered me a job to studying chimpanzees. I was excited for my new job. I said, "Together we can assure that captive chimpanzees have a better life. Together we can save wild chimpanzees in their forest homes." I was filled with curiosity at the age of 5 and loved animals. I moved to Africa and stayed there for the rest of my life. Now you can say I really am a remarkable person.
Thank you, Isabel. Next, we have Britton Vanderhorst.
It was a harsh afternoon in Maryland. Slaves were hard at work outside and in. I was in the big house caring for my master's baby. I began to work at the age of 5. I worked all day in the house while my family suffered outside in the fields. Later, I married a free black man. His last name was Tubman, so now I was Minty Tubman. I hated slavery, but accepted it, knowing that there was a small chance of ever escaping. While I was protecting another terrified slave, I was hit in the head. This blow damaged my head forever. Right then, I decided to flee to Philadelphia, somehow knowing it was the right thing. After I was free, I went back and freed 300 slaves. After I became a cook, a confident nurse, as well as a clever spy, I adopted a girl named Gertie. I died March 10, 1913. Hopefully, my daughter will remember me as a good mother. I, a poor girl, thought I would never be free until I was hit and took matters into my own hands, changing my name to Harriet Tubman. I left a big impact on those who I saved. Without me, lots of people would have never found freedom and remained hopeless.
Thank you, Britton. And now we have Brynley Veenendahl.
Have you ever felt like there was not enough time to love? If you do, you are not alone. It all started when I, Queen Elizabeth, married Prince Philip, and later on we agreed to try and have children. First we had a boy and named him Charles, next we had another boy and named him Andrew, and next we had another boy and named him Edward. I was really tired of boys. Finally we had a girl and named her Anne. I felt discouraged when I realized it is harder to have a family when you have a lot of duties. I felt like there wasn't enough time to love and care for my children. It gave me joy seeing my children play nicely because it reminded me and my older sister Margaret when we were younger and we played together. Margaret was 4 years older than me and sadly died on February 9, 2002 at the age of 71. I still miss my sister very dearly today. I am the longest reigning monarch in Britain, and I haven't only reached my Golden Jubilee, but also my Diamond Jubilee. And this week, they are going to be celebrating my Platinum Jubilee. This means that I have reigned for more than 60 years. I have always been devoted and loved my royal duties. I declare before you that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Brindley. Now we're going to take a short 15-minute intermission. We invite you to enjoy dessert and coffee, and we'll let you know when it's time to resume again in 15 minutes. Welcome back. For our second half of our presentation, our first presenter is Logan Van Balen.
I am General Dwight Eisenhower, one of the most important U.S. commanders of World War II. It was me, but most importantly my troops, who made the final step to end World War II. On June 25th, I became U.S. commander of all troops during World War II. As commander, I quickly developed diplomatic skills, which later employed me as America's 34th president. After the sad bombing of Pearl Harbor, General George Catlett called me to Washington, and I had an idea that Japan just brought the U.S. into the war. On D-Day, I was Supreme Commander of all the troops landing on the 5 beaches. The total men landed on the 5 beaches were 75,800, and 4,427 were injured. D-Day was probably one of the most remembered of World War II because of all the brave heroes who gave up their lives to liberate the people from the oppression of Hitler. Thanks to me, and most importantly my troops, we were able to make the final step to end World War II.
Thank you, Austin. Next, we have Brooklyn Roberts.
It was a sweltering summer's day. That day was July the 12th of 1997, in the time of the Afghan War. Sure, my life would be full of troubles, but yet I would go on to become famous, be brave, and inspire many women around the world. I am Malala Yousafzai. I was born in Pakistan on July the 12th of 1997. My parents were poor and could not afford a midwife. I lived in a time where women had to wear burqas whenever they went out. I was a victim of a gunshot attack, and I had to have a titanium plate in my head. Later on in life, I was involved in activism for women and girls. At the age of 17, I was the youngest to win the National Peace Prize, later named the Malala Peace Prize. I did a speech on human rights titled, "How Dare the Taliban Take Away My Rights to Education?" I enjoyed writing, and I had a blog that I published alongside my autobiography. Sure, my childhood was rough, but I studied hard and became a famous feminist icon.
Thank you, Brooklyn. And next we have Avery Hoekstra.
I was a fantastic artist. I loved painting by the seashores as a young boy. When I got older, I hung my pictures up in the stores. Then I was introduced to a man named Egwin. He introduced me to more painting. He also liked painting outside too. Then I started my own paintings with dark brushstrokes. I admired the outdoors and riverbanks. I was not like all the other men who liked copying out of museums. I liked to use my imagination and liked painting realistic things. My most famous painting was a lily pad painting. I used lots of lighting. I met friends in my young career life. They were artists too, but they did not admire the outdoors like I did. I am Claude Monet, and I am poor, but I stuck to what I loved most.
Thank you, Avery. Next, we have Evan Faber.
Have you ever conquered an entire continent? I have. Well, almost. I was born in 1969 on the island of Corsica. My parents' names were Charles and Letizia Bonaparte, and I, who the world would forever remember, was named Napoleon. I had several brothers and sisters, and our mother, having only one servant, had little time to spend with us, so she gave us a big empty room in which to play. When I was about 5 years old, I was sent to school for little girls, but I didn't stay there long, and I was soon sent to a boys' school with my brother Joseph. I loved soldiers better than anything else, and I longed to be one. Every morning before I went to school, I was given a piece of white bread. This I used to give to a soldier in exchange for a piece of brown bread. My mother was not very pleased at this. I loved soldiers so much, my parents decided I should become one. One December day, my brother Joseph, my father, and I sailed to France to a town called Autun. I did not stay long in Autun, and after about 3 months, my father came to take me away to a military school in Brienne. One day, I was told that I had been admitted to the military school in Paris, and on the 30th of October, 1783, I set out for the capital with 4 other boys. When I had been at Paris for a year, I passed my examinations and received my commission as second lieutenant in the artillery regiment of Lafayette, the finest in the army. And on the 30th of October, 1785, another boy and I set out to join our regiment at Valais. Besides drilling and studying gunnery, I read everything I could about soldiers and war. I also learned how to draw maps and plans, and I, one of the keenest, soon became one of the best officers in the regiment. For the next 4 years, I split my time between France and Corsica until I was sent to Egypt, where I had my first major victory. When I arrived back in France, the people greeted me more joyfully than ever. They were weary of the Directory, the people in charge, and longed for a change. I had never meant to be just a soldier. I was going to be a ruler too. I soon saw my chance, and I took it. That night, I slept in the Palace of Luxembourg with the title of Consul of France. There were 3 other consuls, but they were a mere pretense. I was the true ruler. After being consul for 10 years, I was asked to take the title of consul for life. I was then asked to take the title of emperor, and on the 18th of May, 1804, I was proclaimed emperor of the French. Although I had been proclaimed emperor by the people of France, I had not yet been crowned. So I sent a friend to Rome to ask the Pope to come and crown me. Pope Pius VII did not want to crown me and acknowledge me as ruler of France. However, he wanted to maintain my favor, so he consented to come to Paris and crown me emperor. I then fought Prussia, Spain, Italy, and Russia. Russia is where I had my downfall. In Russia, the soldiers were poorly clothed and were low on food supply. Russia and Prussia declared war on France, and on the 16th of October, the battle began. On the 19th, me and a few who were still living marched through Elbe over the thousands of dead. We had been beaten. I was then exiled to the little island of Elba, and it was there I lived for the rest of my life. At least I was still emperor of Elba.
Thank you, Evan. Next, we have Brian Versluis.
The Barbaric Life of Eric the Red. Land ho, I cried out as I spotted land on the horizon. I am known to be a Viking from Norway, most famous for my discoveries and colonizations of Greenland. I made many voyages to the Nordic peninsula across the ocean. I was called Eric the Red because of my long red hair that reached all the way down to my shoulders. I am known to be a tall, bearded Norseman, and my fiery red hair matched my personality. As a child, me and my family left Norway because my dad was banished for manslaughter. We crossed the ocean and settled in Iceland with my family and other Vikings. Growing up, I learned a lot of things from my dad and became a very talented, skillful sailor. In 982, my servants accidentally caused a landslide that wiped out my neighbor's house. Out of anger, my neighbor killed all my servants, so I killed my neighbor. I guess you could say I was really living up to my red hair personality. In the next year, I decided to leave Iceland in search of new islands. In 983, I discovered Greenland. The name Greenland and its appeals attracted other sailors. So I tried to Later, I tried to sail to the eastern coast of Greenland, Iceland, and realized there is an ice clog blocking it. After my first voyage, I decided that I wanted to bring other people here, so I convinced people from Iceland to come with me. I started off my journey with 35 ships full of horses, cows, oxen, and other things the people needed. However, I only made it there with 14 ships and 350 people that survived the sail. After setting up colonies, I decided to keep on exploring Greenland with my excellent sailing skills. I was an excellent Nordic sailor who discovered great, amazing places like Greenland, who planned a lot of trips in my life, and we can all be thankful for my great discoveries.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have Tristan Vanderde.
I, Walter Elias Disney, changed the animation world forever. I moved many times in only a few years, and my family could not make up their mind on where we wanted to live. I was born in Chicago, Illinois on December 1st, and at the age of 4 moved to a farm in Marceline, Missouri. Here I developed a love for drawing. 4 years later, we moved unexpectedly to Kansas City. I took art classes and photography at McKinley High School here, and when school ended, I got a summer job selling photos and snacks. I also would trade haircuts and I would trade photos for haircuts. At 16, I wanted to join the military, but they turned down my offer because I was too young. Later, I moved to France and drove ambulances for the Red Cross. Later, I moved back to the US and made animated films, which were the best of our time. I hired employees from other animation companies of our time, but there wasn't enough consistent money. This eventually led to bankruptcy. In 1923, I moved again to Hollywood, California. My older brother Roy and I created Disney Brothers Studio. We created famous characters like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck here. Our animated films were some of the best of our time. But later, on December 15th, 1966, I died of lung cancer, but I should be crowned one of the greatest animators of all time.
Thank you, Tristan. Next, we have Jimmy Roberts.
Newspapers were changed forever on November 26, 1922, when I, Charles Schulz, was born. I loved drawing as a child, and in fact, my first cartoon was published when I was 15. My cartoons acted like normal children, unlike most comics of the day. I sold my comics to a company that sold it to other newspapers all over the world, and they changed the name to Peanuts. Peanuts. I died in my sleep at 77 on February 12, 2000, the night before the final peanut strip was released.
Thank you, Jimmy. Next, we have Liam Peters.
Just gonna warn you, my peel-off mustache may fall off and may cause disgust. It is I, the world-winning Genghis Khan. I was among the most successful rulers of all time. At the peak of my empire, I owned half of the entire known world at that time. I am an exceptionally interesting topic to learn about, and I hope you enjoy learning about me. I wasn't always a successful leader. Before my rise to power, I was known simply as Timanjin. I was born in 1162. My father, Yasugi, the leader of the Yaka Mongols, was not very successful. Before I was able to walk, I was taught to ride. When I was 4, I was able to use a bow and arrow. When I finished training, I played polo, a game played on horseback with sticks. When I was 5, I was taught to herd camels, and when I was 6, I was taught to hunt in a dangerous circling technique. This tactic had its cons, as anybody who fell off would be ravenously teared up by the animals below. My father died by poisoning from a fellow Mongolian tribe, and I was crowned leader, but many left as they thought they couldn't trust me. Now that I was the leader of the small tribe, I wanted more power. Over time, I organized a massive army of Mongols. I had united all Mongol tribes into one powerful nation. I then decided to attack surrounding countries. I brutally liquidated anybody or anything in my path, terribly obliterated anybody in Persia, and captured all their cities. All my wars gave me knowledge of fighting, and when my warriors and me attacked China, we attacked from all sides, switching expectations. We overthrew Hungarian cities, Polish cities, and Russian cities. Suddenly, when all was well, word of my death spread like wildfire. I had died of a boar wound. All wars stopped, and they mourned their great Khan's death. Time, skill, and power were all it took to accumulate my massive empire. I was among the most successful leaders, and at the end of my life, I owned all land known to man. I hope I was an interesting topic to learn about, and if I wasn't, my warriors will come after you.
Thank you, Liam. And next we have Joshua DeBorsab.
Welcome to the family, Churchill, said my father on November 30th, 1874, when I, Winston Churchill, was born. I went to the famous Yarrow School, but I had bad grades, but I was said to be good at fighting. Later, I joined the British Navy in 1893 when I was 19 years old. Later, I was transferred to Bombay. I became Home Secretary, one of the most important people in the British government. I ordered the first bombing in Africa. At 1924, I became Chancellor of the Inquisitor. I later took charge of the Navy, but tragically I died in 1964
at the age of 90, with all my relatives at my bedside. I may be one of the most famous people during World War I and World War II. Now that is a real bomber.
Thank you, Joshua. Next, we have Eli Van Vliet.
I, the amazing inventor, was born July 10th, 1856, Nikola Tesla. When I was born during a lightning storm, and the midwife thought the storm was a sign and I would be a child of darkness, but my mom said I would be a child of light. I spoke 8 languages: English, French, Hungarian, and Serb-Croatian. I couldn't stand the sight of pearls and had an obsession with pigeons. I had lots of money and could have been a billionaire, but wanted to start my own business. I had a gambling addiction and lost all my money. Therefore, I had to be a ditch digger for $2 a day. I worked from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., then 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., all over and over and over again. I invented many things in my life: a neon lamp, alternating current, a remote control boat, and much more. My lab burnt down in the year 1895, March 13th. My best invention was the alternating current. I died alone in my luxury hotel in New York City. You could sleep in the bed I died in.
Thank you, Eli. Next, we have Logan Van Balen.
I, Billy Bishop, was Canada's greatest fighter pilot during World War I. I flew in Newport with a top speed of 172 kilometers per hour. I earned 2 medals for my bravery, skill, and determination. I was the best Canadian fighter pilot. I earned my Victoria Cross for a mission where I single-handedly flew against a German aerodrome. I inspired many other people, but few led the charmed life that I had. I always was ready for reckless, close-range attacks on enemy pilots. In 1917, a new pilot could expect to be shot in 10 days. I had a total of 72 victories. I survived an encounter with Germany's most feared pilot, the Red Baron, and on my last day of active duty, I shot 5 enemy planes in 12 minutes. I withdrew from active duty in 1918. I had an outstanding 72 victories, earned 2 medals, and incredibly shot 5 enemy planes in 12 minutes. I had the second most victories, just behind the Red Baron, who had 80 victories. I doubt many people would want to meet me on their first flight.
Thank you, Logan. And our final presenter of the evening is Elliott Brennan.
I conquered the world and made a great empire. I am Alexander the Great, the best Macedonian ruler. I made the world a better place for many people. Of course, I couldn't have been great with help from my parents during my early years. My father was King Philip II, and my mother was Queen Olympias. The kingdom of Greece was split into city-states. Macedonia, my birthplace, was the northernmost of the city-states. My father built a large army and started the empire by capturing all the other city-states. He was murdered, and I was crowned at the age of 20. The first city I captured was Thessaly. My troops and I snuck past sleeping guards and captured the city. The Egyptians welcomed me and allowed me to rule them. We defeated the Persians and burned their palace. We were beat by India. After capturing part of it, I was famous for controlling most of the world. My exhausted soldiers retreated from India and returned to Babylon. There I caught a fever and died at the age of 32. My generals fought over the empire I had created. Antigonus got Greece, Ptolemy got Egypt, and the rest was taken by Seleucus and became the Seleucid Empire. Though I had a short life, I was important to the history of the world. I was among the ancient world's greatest leaders and built a great empire in only 12 years. I am a ruler who will be remembered for many years to come.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, students, and thank you all for being with us this evening. We're going to close in just one moment by singing the doxology, but just a note to the students. After we sing, I'm going to ask you to parade in costume around to make sure that everyone can see you before everyone leaves. But before we do that, let us end the evening with the praise of the Lord on our lips by singing the doxology. Praise God from whom all blessings flow, hymn 8. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above the heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Students, if you will please, en masse, come to the front, turn and face everyone, and then I will lead you or direct you in a single file parade.